to study 4 in the Gospel of Mark in our Search the Scripture 3-year study through the Bible. Today we are on study 4 in the book of Mark that begins with chapter 2 and verse 13 and goes into the 6th verse of chapter number 3. And we are going to attempt to answer 2 different sets of questions today. The first one is this: note how, when questions were asked about his behavior, Jesus made himself and the work that he had come to do the sufficient justification for his action. What claims was he thus making for himself? And secondly, why did not Jesus' disciples stand condemned for doing what's unlawful on the Sabbath? And who did stand condemned for their wrong use of the Sabbath in the subsequent controversy concerning the healing of the man with the withered hand? Since Jesus used the Sabbath as his day and for men's good, how ought we to use the Lord's day? Well, let's look at Mark chapter 2, verse 13 through chapter 3 and verse 6 together. Once again, Jesus went out beside the lake, and a large crowd came to him, and he began to teach them. And as he walked along, he saw Levi, son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax collector's booth. Follow me, Jesus told him, and Levi got up and followed him. While Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors and sinners were eating with him and his disciples, for there were many who followed him. And when the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with the sinners and tax collectors, they asked his disciples, "Why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners?" And on hearing this, Jesus said to them, "It is not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. I have not come to call the righteous, but sinners." Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting. And some people came and asked Jesus, "How is it that John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees are fasting, but yours are not?" And Jesus answered, "How can the guests of the bridegroom fast while he is with them? They cannot, so long as they have him with them. But the time will come when the bridegroom will be taken from them, and on that day they will fast. No one sews a patch of unshrunken cloth on an old garment. If he does, the new piece will pull away from the old, making the tear worse. And no one pours new wine into old wineskins. If he does, the wine will burst the skins, and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. Now he pours new wine into new wineskins." Well, on the Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and as his disciples walked along, they began to pick some heads of grain. And the Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are you doing what's unlawful on the Sabbath?" And Jesus answered, Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for the priest to eat. And he also gave some to his companions. Then he said to them, "The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord, even of the Sabbath." Now in Mark chapter number 3, another time he went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there, and some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. And Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." And then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" They remained silent. And he looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts, and he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. And then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Well, let's look again at the questions. Note how when questions were asked about his behavior, that Jesus made himself and the work that he had come to do the sufficient justification for his action. And what claims was he thus making for himself? Well, Jesus was claiming his authority. Each time that there was a healing or deliverance of demonic possession that took place. And he also showed great authority in his understanding of Scripture each time that he confronted the Pharisees with a challenge as to how they should interpret the law. Second question, why did Jesus' disciples stand condemned for doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? And who did stand condemned for their wrong use of the Sabbath in the subsequent controversy concerning the healing of the man with the shriveled hand? And since Jesus used the Sabbath as his day and for men's good, how ought we to use the Lord's day? Well, Jesus went a long way in clarifying the biblical teaching of the Sabbath with this simple statement: the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. we do need to have a regular Sabbath time in our lives in which we dedicate ourselves to the work of the Lord and to the benefit of others. Now, if you take that term Sabbath and a Sabbath day, it actually works out to about 14%. And we just really need to kind of use that as a guideline or a marker. We give them 14% of our time and devotion to the Lord. That's the least really that we should be doing. So we need to have that regular Sabbath time in our lives for ourselves, for others. The Sabbath is not meant, however, to be a day to further ourselves financially or socially, really, but it is a day to further ourselves spiritually, physically, emotionally, while at the same time helping and encouraging those that are around us. The Sabbath was created for us, and yet really the best possible thing that we can truly do for ourselves is to serve God and to serve others. I trust this has been a helpful study to you. I hope that you have a Sabbath in your life where you recharge your batteries so that you can be beneficial to the Lord and beneficial to others, where you reach out to the needs of others and you reach out and worship the Lord. A Sabbath needs to be a regular time and experience in your life. I hope this has been a blessing. I hope you're having a fantastic day. God bless, and I hope your day, rest of your day, goes even better.